Sand hissed against the hull of the old dome like whispers of ghosts trying to sneak their way inside. On the edge of the Varnan wastes, far beyond the last trade convoy routes and forgotten by most of the galaxy, the old base stood quiet, half buried in centuries of dust, but still stubbornly intact. Torkel Vant, ex-Union mechanic and survivor of 3 interstellar wars, squinted through the golden light of the double sunset as he dragged a plasma wrench across the scorching sand. His back ached, his knees were mutinous, and the heat made him wish he'd stayed on that retirement station orbiting Zebulon Prime. But he hadn't come out here for comfort. He'd come to die. Not in a morbid sense. He wasn't ill, not yet anyway. But after spending his life patching up war machines and watching good people, human and otherwise, bleed out in the guts of shattered frigates, he figured he deserved to choose the place he'd take his final breath, and he liked the quiet. The dome had good bones. Abandoned decades ago, likely by some defunct alien research expedition, it had been auctioned off by planetary salvage courts for a pittance. Torkel bought it with the last of his military payout and a quiet laugh. There was no one left to object. No one waiting for him to come home. Inside, the place was surprisingly cozy. Torkel had retrofitted the interior with Union standard gravity regulators and an old reactor core he'd salvaged from a derelict hauler. It hummed softly beneath his feet, like a heartbeat in the belly of a sleeping beast. He leaned the wrench against the hatch, sighed, and rubbed the grit from his beard. Then came the knock, a single, delicate tap-tap on the main airlock door. Torkel froze. No one should have been within 100 clicks. He hadn't picked up any approach signals, no power signatures, no ship trails. Another knock, firmer this time. He reached under the table beside him, pulling out a stubby ion carbine, just in case. The hatch clicked and hissed, mechanisms groaning like arthritic joints, and slowly opened. She stood in the threshold, tall, green-skinned, and radiant, in the dying sun. Her eyes glowed softly like plasma coils, and a faint shimmer ran across her skin, a sign of ambient bioarmor. She wore only a short top and tactical leggings, clearly adapted to the heat, but the precision of her movement said she was a trained warrior. One eyebrow arched. "You are squatting in my house, human," Torkel blinked. "You're what?" She stepped inside without waiting. A strange scent followed her, cool and floral, like something that had no right surviving in the desert. This facility was registered to the Loren Scientific Armada, which means it belongs to me, Dr. Velatra Zen. Her gaze swept the interior. "Though you've done an impressive amount of damage." Torkel lowered the carbine a few inches. "Bought it from the courts, fair and square. The Varnan courts do not outrank Loren's sovereign rights. This base is Loren property, and I am the sole surviving officer." She spoke with the sharp cadence of someone used to command and losing it. He scratched the back of his neck. "Well, you got the title? Paperwork? Starfleet claim codes?" Velatra's expression faltered. That was answer enough. "Then we got a problem," Torkel said, quietly. "I didn't come here to start a war, just wanted peace. If you want the place back, prove it." Her eyes narrowed. "You think I'm bluffing?" "No," he said slowly. "I think you're lost, same as me." A long silence hung between them, broken only by the soft hum of the generator and the hiss of the sandstorm beginning to pick up outside. Velatra looked away first. "You have water?" she asked. He nodded toward the kitchen pod. Taps filtered through a triple distill unit. She walked past him, graceful and unarmed. Torkel watched her warily, uncertain whether he'd just invited in company or a storm. That night she stayed, not out of kindness, out of necessity. The sandstorm grew feral, and the dome held fast, while lightning screamed across the dunes. Velatra sat at the small table, arms crossed, sipping from a mug of recycled water, as if it were fine wine. Her eyes roamed the walls, filled with tool. Racks, maps, and photos of people long gone. "You were a soldier," she said, not asked. "Mechanic," he replied. "Mostly patched things that were bleeding too much to fly. And now you hide in the desert." "And you?" he asked. "Last I checked, scientists didn't travel with plasma blades and tracker implants." A flash of something crossed her face. Regret, maybe. "My unit was supposed to study temporal fractures in the rift zone. The war came. My people didn't survive." Torkel leaned back. "So you came home." Valatra's gaze softened, just for a second. "There's no home left, just this place." They didn't talk for a while after that, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. In the days that followed, she helped him fix the outer defense grid, said it was for territorial integrity, but he saw the glimmer in her eye. She liked working with her hands. He caught her humming. Once, bent over a rusted antenna array. "You know, I was planning to die here," he said one night, staring at the stars through the open dome hatch. "I was planning to die alone," she replied softly. Neither of them were good with words, but sometimes quiet truths were enough. Then came the flare, a red spark in the sky, bright, pulsing, unmistakably artificial. Valatra saw it first. She rose to her feet, tense. "That's a Lokari beacon. They're tracking me." "Lokari?" "Raiders?" She shook her head. "Worse. Cleaners. They don't just capture rogue assets, they erase them." Torkel stood. "Then we don't let them find you." She looked at him like she wasn't sure if he was a fool or something else entirely. "Why help me?" He shrugged. "Maybe I got tired of dying. Maybe I just like you more than I expected to." A ghost of a smile tugged at her lips. "Then, we fight." As the desert winds howled and the stars began to bleed with fire, Torkel pulled his old carbine from the wall and handed Valatra a freshly charged pulse rifle. She accepted it without hesitation. Together, they stood on the dunes, Edge staring into the night. Two broken warriors who had every reason to run and one reason not to. The Lokari didn't believe in stealth. Their ship tore across the sky like a flaming dagger, screaming toward the Varnan wastes in a trail of blue plasma. It was more intimidation than precision, a declaration of intent. Torkel and Valatra watched. From a dune ridge near the base, their armor lightly dusted with sand. His was a mismatched composite of ex-Union plates and welding gear. Hers, grown back from dormant bioarmor cells, was dark green and iridescent, shimmering like oil on water. "They'll land within the hour," she muttered, eyes narrowed at the glowing arc in the sky. "And if they follow protocol, they'll..." "Deploy a sweep team before sunrise." Torkel spat into the dirt. "What kind of firepower are we talking?" 10-man recon squad minimum. Could be more. Biohounds, drones, and a suppression crawler. I've got half a charge of perimeter mines, an overclocked fusion turret, and about 1,000 curses left in me. He cocked his ion rifle with a grunt. "Let's make it ugly." She tilted her head. "You're calm for a man preparing to face exterminators." "Not my first round," he said. "Besides, I'm a mechanic. My job's always been to fix what the war breaks." He glanced at her. "Looks like the war broke you too." She didn't answer, but her silence didn't deny it. Back at the dome, they ran system checks and rerouted power to the automated defenses. Torkel's fusion turret, now mounted atop the comms relay, whirred to life with a gleeful hum. Valatra studied his handiwork. "Your equipment is ancient. Why does it still function?" "Because I treat it with respect. Machines, like people, get what you give." Her eyes lingered on him a moment longer than necessary. "And how do you treat people?" Torkel met her gaze. "Like they're worth fixing, even if they don't think they are." That quieted her. By nightfall, the first scout ships appeared, sleek black skimmers gliding low over the dunes. One hovered too close to a heat signature decoy and exploded in a flash of orange light. The shockwave rippled the sand like water. Torkel grinned. 1. 7 more to go, Velatra replied, already running toward the auxiliary ridge where the mines were buried. They moved like seasoned veterans. Torkel's gruff muscle and instinct guided the defenses. Velatra's lethal. Gray swept through weak points before the Lokari even knew where to look. Drones fell. Hounds were caught in pulse traps. The crawler didn't show until dawn. It was massive, rolling over the dunes like a steel beast, 6 legs pounding the ground, central turret charged with an ion destabilizer big enough to crack a bunker. Torkel dove behind the rusted core of an old skiff. That thing's too armored for the turret. Velatra slid beside him, her skin scratched and glowing. I have an idea. She uncoiled a thin band from her wrist and snapped it into a gleaming spear. Get me close and I'll take it from there. You sure about that? No, she said, but I don't want to lose my house again. Torkel gave a bark of laughter. Right, landlord's vengeance it is. Under the cover of another explosion, he drove an old hover cart full throttle toward the crawler, steering through gunfire and energy bursts. The cart skidded to a stop meters from the Juggernaut's flank. Torkel threw himself off just as Velatra launched. She was a blur of green fire, her spear igniting mid-air. She struck the crawler's central core, through the exposed heat exhaust, and plunged her blade in deep. The machine shrieked like a dying animal before erupting in a plume of blue flame. Silence fell. Ash rained down across the dunes. Torkel coughed as he pulled himself upright, staggering toward the wreckage. Velatra stood amid the smoking ruins, spear planted in the sand, shoulders heaving. You all right? He called. She turned slowly, face streaked with dust and victory. I think I broke my ribs. He chuckled, then winced. Me too, twins. They limped back together. The aftermath was strange. No reinforcements came, no second wave. The Lokari weren't used to resistance, especially not in the middle of nowhere. They cut their losses and vanished into the void. Torkel reset the base systems. Velatra helped him patch up the dome. They didn't talk much about what they'd done. They didn't need to. That night he found her outside, sitting atop the antenna mount, legs dangling over the edge. Her bioarmor was gone, revealing bare skin illuminated by the stars. He climbed up beside her, wheezing slightly. This seat taken? She looked at him sidelong. You'll break it. Probably. They sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, Why did you really come here, Torkel? He hesitated. Got tired of watching the people I fix leave, and the ones I couldn't fix. You ran? No, I quit. Her voice softened. There's a difference? He nodded slowly. Yeah, one's fear, the other's choice. Velatra stared out at the stars. I didn't run either. I stayed behind when the Elren fell. Thought I could outlast the collapse. But it got to me anyway. Torkel's voice was low. We've both been left behind. She turned to him then, eyes luminous. Do you miss them? He didn't need to ask who she meant. Every day, he said. She leaned her head against his shoulder. Me too. His arm moved instinctively around her, not possessive, protective, human, real. For the first time since they met, she relaxed. Completely. They stayed that way until the chill of night crept in. Over the next few weeks, their rhythm changed. They built new walls, strengthened the base's systems, grew vegetables in the hydroponic troughs. Velatra showed him how to splice Loren biotech into the filtration system. He taught her how to rebuild an engine with just wire and hope. They laughed more, ate together, fell into a comfortable kind of silence that said more than words ever could. Then, one night, Velatra stood at the edge of the dome's interior platform and said, I'm not staying. Torkel froze mid-repair. She looked at him, unreadable. I stayed too long already. The Lokari know I'm alive. Eventually someone will come. This place won't be safe. He stood slowly. And if I said I didn't care, then I'd call you a fool. And if I asked you to stay anyway, I'd ask if you're really living again, or just afraid of being alone. Torkel walked toward her. His voice was raw. You want me to stop you? No, she whispered. I want you to give me a reason not to go. He stopped in front of her. I don't want to die anymore, he said, because somehow, in all this sand and silence, you made me feel like I wasn't broken, like maybe I still had something left to build. Velatra's breath caught. Don't have promises, he continued. I'm old. I snore. My hands shake when it's cold. And I've buried more friends than I can remember. She stepped closer. But I have a heart, he said quietly. And it's yours. If you want it. Velatra's fingers touched his chest. I do, she said. Then she kissed him. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was desperate, searing, honest. The kind of kiss that carried grief, hope, and the slow rekindling of trust. When they parted, she was crying. So was he. You fixed something, she said, but this time, it was me. Torkel had once believed the galaxy would forget him. But 2 months after kissing a war-scarred alien princess beneath a shattered sky, he realized something else entirely. He hadn't been forgotten. He had been waiting. They slept in the same bed now, though most nights, sleep was a second priority. Velatra's body was lithe and strong, made for battle, but with him, her touch was gentle, careful. Her voice no longer held the sharp tension of a survivor waiting for betrayal. Feels strange, she murmured one night, curled against his chest. How so? He asked. I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm not counting the exits. I'm safe. And I don't know what to do with that. Torkel kissed the side of her head. You could start by not leaving. She smiled into his chest. Still. Afraid I'll disappear in the night, old man? Terrified. They lay in silence for a while. Then came the signal. 3 sharp beeps, long pause. 2 more. Velatra sat bolt upright. That's Loren, military pattern. Torkel followed, half naked and already reaching for a battered scanner. Your people? I thought they were extinct. Scattered, she corrected. Some survived in deep drift, old ship fleets, burrowed colonies. But this, she replayed. The signal. This is a distress beacon. Ancient, but legitimate, he frowned. Could be bait, could be family. That changed things. By mid-morning, Torkel had tuned the dome's comm array to triangulate the source. It came from a crashed vessel buried beneath the northern ice shelf, 2,000 kilometers from their dome. C-class transport. Looks like it was shot down months ago, he muttered, tapping coordinates into the nav console. Then someone's been stuck out there for a long time, Velatra said, already pulling her armor on. And they're still alive. Torkel didn't argue. He simply packed his gear and prepped the hover skiff. When she paused at the ramp to look back at their base, her voice was low. If we don't come back, we will, he said. I've still got a solar toilet to fix, remember? She smiled. It was the softest smile he'd ever seen on someone who'd once decapitated a biohound mid-leap. They left at dawn. The northern ice shelf was a graveyard. Torkel had seen plenty of wrecks in his day, burned-out escape pods, broken satellites, even a broken moon, but the ship they found embedded in the glacier was older than anything he'd worked on. Sleek curves of Loren design peeked through layers of jagged frost, its hull crumpled from impact, but not breached. It's beautiful, he breathed. Velatra ran a hand over the icy metal. It was a royal courier, my father's design. They cut their way inside. The corridors were dark, lined with bioluminescent vines gone dormant. Frost clung to the walls like veins. Somewhere deeper, a faint thump echoed, a heartbeat, mechanical and steady. Cryopod, Velatra whispered. They followed the sound through the wreckage until they reached the core bay. There, half buried under debris and ice, was a single stasis pod. The occupant inside was unmistakably Loren, taller than Velatra, leaner, and marked with royal glyphs. She dropped to her knees. "That's my sister." Torkel kept his distance. "Is she stable?" Velatra scanned the pod. "Barely. Power's failing. I need to route backup energy through the fusion coupler." Torkel stepped forward, already examining the systems. "We'll need to bypass the frozen feed lines. If I splice into this port and redirect from the external reserve, we might buy a few minutes." "Enough to wake her?" Velatra asked, eyes wide. He looked up. Only one way to find out. They worked in silence, fingers numbing from the cold, breath visible in the air. Torkel's hands shook slightly, but not from fear. He was hyper-focused, alive in a way he hadn't been in years. When the final connection sparked to life, the pod lights turned green. The hibernation field dropped. The woman inside stirred, her eyes fluttered open, piercing violet, even sharper than Velatra's. "Sister?" she rasped. Velatra caught her. "It's me. You're safe now." The woman looked past her, locking, eyes with Torkel. "You brought a human?" Torkel raised a hand. "Hey!" Velatra stood. "He saved me, saved this world." The woman struggled to sit up. "Then he has my gratitude, but we are not safe." Torkel's stomach dropped. "Why? Not?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "The Lokari weren't chasing me. They were chasing what I stole." Velatra's face hardened. "What did you take?" Her sister reached into her suit and withdrew a crystalline shard glowing with eerie blue light. "The Starseed. A living map. It holds the genetic imprint of every Elren world, and the locations of the last hidden colonies." Torkel swallowed. "And if the Lokari get it, they'll wipe us out, every last ember." They brought her back to the dome. Torkel worked around the clock to build an isolation chamber, while Velatra tended to her sister's recovery. But something had shifted, between them all. Velatra was more distant, quiet. The weight of legacy had returned to her shoulders. Torkel watched her from the garage as she stared out at the horizon. "You good?" he asked finally. "I don't know." He walked over, wiping grease from his fingers. "Talk to me." She didn't look at him. "She's royalty, full-blooded. She'll expect me to lead the remnants of our people again, but I'm not that woman anymore." "You're more than you were," he said. "You survived." She finally turned to him. "And you? What happens when I go?" Torkel didn't flinch. "Then I follow." She stared. "You'd leave all this behind?" He stepped closer. "I built it to die in, Velatra. Then you showed up and gave me something to live for. Where you go, I go." Her eyes glistened. "Even into another war?" He pulled her into his arms. "Especially then." They kissed again. Slower this time. Less fire, more certainty. That night, the sky lit up with plasma fire. The Lokari had found them. Anti-orbital rounds screamed through the clouds as the base's defense systems activated. Warning sirens echoed across the desert. Torkel barely had time to grab his rifle before the first strike hit. The dome shook. Shields flared red. Velatra's sister limped into the control room. "They're scanning for the Starseed. If they breach the dome, they'll find it." "We can't let that happen," Torkel said, eyes on the tactical display. "We hold the line." Velatra looked between them. "We make our stand here." Her sister offered the Starseed to Torkel. He blinked. "Me? You're not a soldier. Not a leader. You're something rarer, a builder. Hide it. Protect it. Because if it survives, we have a future." He took it carefully. "Where do I take it?" Velatra answered. "The underground escape shaft, sealed after the last attack. No scanners will find you." Torkel met her eyes. "You're not coming? We'll buy you time." He grabbed her hand. "Don't you dare die on me." She kissed him. Deep, fierce, final. You fixed me, Torkel. Now let me protect what you've built. Then she turned, her armor blooming around her in full battle regalia. Torkel fled into the shadows. Behind him, the war resumed. The underground shaft reeked of old coolant and rust. Torkel ducked under collapsed struts and crawled through half-sealed pressure doors, the starseed shard pulsing warm against his chest. It was smaller than his fist, yet it felt like it weighed the galaxy. Above, the dome shook with cannon fire. He could feel the vibrations in the bones of the earth, dull, steady, relentless. Every step forward felt like betrayal. He wanted to turn back, to fight beside Velatra, to die beside her, if that's what it came to. But she'd asked him to do something harder, live. Velatra stood atop the outer barricade, the desert wind blowing her hair like a war banner. Her sister Avaren crouched. Behind a shattered crate, plasma rifle glowing blue with residual heat. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Lokari dropships cut through the clouds like razors, offloading troops with chitinous armor and glowing visors. They hissed. As they advanced, biomechanical horrors bred for extermination. Hold this line, Velatra shouted, voice amplified across the comms. For our people, for the flame that survives in all of us. Avaren looked up, blood trailing from a gash above her eye. We won't last long. We don't need to, Velatra said grimly. We just need enough. The first wave hit like a hammer. Plasma bolts tore through sand and steel. Drones zipped past their ears. One of the turrets exploded in a bloom of green flame. Velatra rolled under the shockwave and returned fire, aiming for joints, eyes, vents. She knew how these bastards worked. This was her song. The war song of a race nearly extinct, and she would be its last verse, if need be. Torkel reached the emergency egress chamber, just below the mountain ridge. The old tunneling crawler was still there, powered down, dusty, but intact. He checked the systems. Power, minimal. Navigation, fried. Shields, non-existent. Still better than dying in a collapsing dome. He glanced down at the starseed, then turned to the interface console. His hands hovered over the ignition keys, but stopped. Damn it. He couldn't do it. Not like this. Not without knowing. He slammed a fist against the metal. Come on, old man, he growled to himself. You've run from enough ghosts. He yanked the starseed from its pouch, activated the emergency transmitter in the crawler's console, and set a 5-minute delay. Then he turned and ran. Velatra was bleeding from a dozen cuts by the time. She heard it, the soft whir of the escape crawler activating in the distance. Good. Torkel was away. She allowed herself a flicker of peace, until a bolt smashed into the barricade beside her, throwing her back. Her helmet cracked. Her vision blurred. Avaren screamed something, but Velatra couldn't hear it. Everything was ringing. Her limbs felt heavy. She sat up slowly, just in time to see a Lokari commander step through the smoke. Towering, plated in black armor, its voice sounded like shrieking metal. Give us the shard, it said, and you may die clean. Velatra spat blood and smiled. You first. She dove forward, activating the plasma blade at her hip and slashing upward in a blur of blue fire. The blade bit deep, but not deep enough. The Lokari backhanded her into the sand. It raised its cannon arm, then it froze. A low rumble echoed. Behind it, from the smoke stepped Torkel, face covered in soot, armor scorched, holding a fusion torch in one hand, and in the other, a homemade grenade. You bastards forgot, he said, voice raw. This is my house. He flung the grenade. It exploded against the Lokari's back in a burst of kinetic shrapnel, knocking it forward. Velatra lunged from the ground and drove her blade up under its helm. The Lokari screamed once, then crumpled. Silence. Avaren stared. What? What are you doing here? Torkel reached down and hauled Velatra to her feet. I told you, he said, pulling her into a crushing embrace. Where you go, I go. She clung to him. I thought I told you to live. He cupped her face. I am. With you. They kissed, dirt and blood and fire around them. Then came the second wave. The fight dragged into hours. Reinforcements from the ridge, retreats, countercharges. Torkel fought beside the Loren sisters, jury-rigging weapons mid-battle, detonating buried mines he'd installed years ago, just in case. Eventually the Lokari retreated. Not because they were beaten, but because the signal from the starseed had gone dead. Torkel's transmitter had fooled them into thinking it had been launched off-world. They wouldn't give up forever. But for now, the dome still stood. Days passed. They buried the dead in the western dunes. Avaren recovered in a repurposed medbay, her gratitude slowly shifting into kinship toward the human who'd nearly died for her. Torkel and Velatra rebuilt, but not to die in silence. They turned the dome into something else entirely. A beacon. With Avaren's help, they reactivated the ancient royal signal and encoded the starseed's message within it, a promise to all surviving Loren. You are not alone. Come home. Ships began to answer. First one, then a dozen. Families long thought extinct arrived, hollow-eyed, cautious, but hopeful. Children played in the dust again. Engineers helped Torkel repair what had once been ruins. Warriors trained beneath the stars. And Velatra, once a ghost, stood at the heart of it all. Not a queen, not a general, but something stronger, a protector, a partner. One night, months later, Torkel stood atop the dome's roof, sipping recycled whiskey from a dented flask. Velatra stepped up beside him, wrapped in a robe of soft desert cloth. Still watching the sunset alone? She teased. Waiting on you, he said. She leaned against him. They watched in silence for a while, until he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small battered ring. Her eyes widened. What is that? Old Terran tradition, he said. Thought I'd try it on a woman 10 times stronger than me, with a kill count higher than the years I've been alive. She stared. He swallowed. Velatra of the Loren, would you maybe consider marrying a retired mechanic with bad knees and a really decent set of tools? She took the ring, turned it in her fingers, and then laughed. A real laugh. Loud and surprised and impossibly warm. Only, she said, if you let me rebuild it. This thing's ugly as hell. He grinned. Deal. Epilogue. Years later, when historians of the new galactic age recorded the rebirth of the Loren, they would speak of war and exile, of the starseed and the Lokari threat. But tucked away in old records was a footnote, one that puzzled scholars and amused romantics. The first rebuilt colony's shield architecture was based on human welding patterns, allegedly designed by a retired mechanic who claimed he came to the desert to die, but ended up building a kingdom instead. And when tourists came to that place, now lush with terraformed gardens and humming with life, they would always stop at the statue on the hill. A human man, scarred and smiling, one arm around a tall alien woman with violet eyes and battle armor. The inscription beneath simply read, "He fixed the dome. She fixed his heart."